Good day, good morning, good evening, whatever time of the day that you're watching this episode of Abuti Show. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. We are here sitting down with a very strong character on social media with regards to brands, and we're going to be learning so much from this great gentleman. But before we could do that, I just want you guys to make sure that you subscribe to this YouTube channel called Abuti Show, but also like and share with your friends so that we can be part of the conversation. We need to hear your comments. We want to see your comments, and thank you so much for being part of the conversation in the previous episodes. We've seen your comments, we've been sharing, and we've been communicating with you guys, and also be part of our conversation through our newsletters. Sign up to our newsletter so that you can get updates on the new episodes, but not only that, but also insightful knowledge from the ARC Insights. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. And today we have none other than the human himself in a human form. I guess you know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. So we have none other than Joe Jimenez. My guy. How are you?
Good. I don't know.
Okay, we do. Okay, by the way, we do this one.
If we're doing, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, no, sometimes we forget about these things. We forget that.
It's difficult, man, to adapt to the new norms because as human beings, we are so focused on just being present
and being who we are,
interacting,
which is human.
Right?
Excuse the pun. But essentially, that's the thing. What does the new normal mean to you as Joe?
Look, man, I think it means what it's always meant, and that's adapting, being able to understand where the industry is going, where your job is going, where the world is going, and finding your space in that. How do you influence that? How do you add value to that? How do you survive? How do you monetize whatever it is that you're creating? So the new norm will always just be about being able to adapt to what's coming.
So being agile in whichever industry that you're in.
Exactly.
But who is Joe?
Wow, that's a very tough question. I think in a nutshell, Joe is a creative entrepreneur. I'm Congolese, born in the Congo. I've lived here almost all my life.
Nice.
And I've had to sort of adapt to the different culture. So finding my place, how I was brought up, and then coming to South Africa and learning about the South African cultures and trying to find my place in that as well.
In the bigger schemes of things,
very, very young at heart. I've always been a creative. I grew up with creators around me.
Wow.
My family, my dad, my uncles, they were always creating things, always building things. And from a tender age, I took that on, and it became a passion. Got into high school and picked visual arts.
Wow.
And that's where I think I sort of found myself, because I understood and I started learning more about the creative industry and digital and actually what's out there. And it was a difficult conversation to have with my parents, I remember, because being black and disadvantaged, when you think of an artist or a creative, you think of someone that is struggling, right? So someone that will not make money.
Sure.
No, it comes from the whole concept of growing up, your parents want you to be a doctor or an engineer,
sure,
to be the pride of the family. So if you're a creative, if you're a singer, if you want to be if you want to be an artist, it becomes very difficult to have that conversation with them, because then they are not educated about that field.
Sure.
Right? So they didn't know that, hey, digital was going to be the new norm, or digital was going to be where young creatives like us are monetizing our platforms and the content we put out. So back then, a couple of years ago, we were not having those conversations within our communities. So for someone to say, I want to be an animator or a graphic designer, they look down upon you because it's not glorified as being a doctor or a pilot.
Yeah, correct.
Or whatnot.
But then, before we could even, because your answer is so packed, and I'm gonna decipher some of the things from that answer, which we're going to speak about monetization, branding, and whatnot. But something that you have mentioned, that you're Congolese by origins, your origins and whatnot. What have you seen different between the entrepreneurs that are from other African countries as different to the ones that are in South Africa in terms of their ideology around what entrepreneurship is about and how they approach entrepreneurship?
I think the biggest thing for us, and I'm just speaking from a point of not being South African and coming into SA, I think the biggest thing is the availability to resources and information that SA has compared to other African countries, right? I know for a fact that there is some jobs that I do, there's work and there's companies that I found here that are not back home. Yeah. And you taking that back home would mean you making a killing, because there aren't a lot of people doing that, or there aren't people that have the resources to be able to start up a creative agency or actually bloom in terms of their content. Like, I look at Congolese content creators, and not a lot of us who are based in the Congo are actually making money or are known. It's always the ones that have left the Congo, maybe are based in Belgium or France or SA or other African countries where there's a lot more resources, right? Those are the ones that you get to know about, or they are making moves within their respected industries. So I think the biggest thing is just being having access to resources and opportunities that are here.
So if you are looking at the different political landscape of Congo, and as opposed to South Africa, in terms of the political will for the support that needs to be done or to be given, never mind the resources, the bigger resources that we could even pump in, but just the moral support, the political will to make sure that we enhance entrepreneurship. What is the difference between those two countries?
There is a huge gap. There is a huge gap, to a point where I think I can safely say that the moral support and the resource support for entrepreneurs in my country is almost non-existent.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's almost non-existent.
So we're very privileged here.
We are so lucky.
Goodness.
I always say this to most of my friends. I'm like, you guys are very lucky, because where I come from, for you to even start a business, there's so much political influence that you would need to have, or you would need to know people who are high up there, so that you can be able to just really own that thing on your own, right? If you're just going to start and hope that you're able to build something successful throughout your years of running or months, they will take you down. They will take you down. It's crazy. It's almost non-existent.
Yeah,
I can safely say that.
Goodness. And you are in the creative space, and I'm just thinking here that there's so many great talent in Africa, and not just South Africa, but just Africa at large. And you had this interest to go into the space, and you said, had it not been that you made the decision from a tender age to become a creative, but and you took that bold decision to then say, I'm entering into the space that is despised, this space that is ridiculed most of the time. It is sometimes taken for granted by people in higher level, even from the lower LSMs. They don't consider this creative industry. What have you done in the past, and how long have you been in the industry, and what has been your contribution towards the industry? Maybe you could mention the big names that you have worked with and whatnot, but maybe inspire our audience who are watching this and saying, look, I see Joe.
Look, I think I always speak about home in the sense that the business that I run with my business partner Elliot Sitole, we started Creative Mindspace. We are an agency, a young agency that is just passionate about African brands, and I think the core purpose of why we started that business was we noticed that, look, our continent is filled with people, right? Cultures, fashion, diversity, heritage. We are so rich,
Sure.
with minerals, food, weather, you name it, right? Anything. And we lack being able to tell the narrative and to own that narrative from a brand perspective, right? We get a lot of brands like your international brands who would come into, let's say, SA and take the Ndebele print, create something of their own and sell it back to us, right? And then you end up spending 3,000, 4,000 rand more on that piece of garment, but it's your heritage.
It's yours.
Right? It's yours.
You own it.
It's in your backyard.
Yes,
You see it every day.
You just pull it from the backyard and
right?
rock it.
To a point where it doesn't even fascinate you anymore because you see it every day.
Sure.
And they take our stories, they take our clothing, our art, our music, and they tell a very different narrative and a different story to a point where it's not even African anymore. Right, and we said, let us build an agency that understands African stories and African narrative, because the biggest thing about building brands is having a story, right? People connect with stories. People buy into stories. People buy into you.
It's about storytelling.
People buy into people, right? And we said, look, we are going to build an agency that takes African brands' narrative and brings them into a global space,
market,
right? So that's where we play, and we've been able to build really amazing brands. We've worked with brands like your Skinny Spoo Socks, your Tepolo Gin Makers, Pizza Vino, Vodacom.
Nice.
So we've been able to really input ourselves and sort of like just create our own market, because we knew that, look, there's bigger agencies that was set before us. They've got bigger contracts, bigger resources, but what's our niche?
What's your niche market?
And where do we fit in as a boutique creative agency? And throughout that, I think on a personal level, I've been able to get onto the Forbes list, Fast Company Top 20 Under 25.
Congratulations!
I've won some awards and stuff like that, but I think the bigger picture is really just being able to create value and adding that into our African continent, being able to build African brands that have a long lifespan.
A good friend of mine looks up to you so much and says, I'm so impressed by how he has positioned his brand. Apart from having Creative Mind Space, but you also have this brand called Joe Jimenez, which is not really your name. Who are you, dude? What's your name? But you created a brand. Same as people who always say, there's Abuti Rams. Abuti Rams is a brand. My name is not Abuti Rams. My name is Tabang.
Yeah.
But I've created a brand called Abuti Rams, which now even has a show. There's a company. There's also a foundation that's doing amazing work in Africa. But the main thing is creating a brand. How did you get to a point where you say, I'm going to create a brand, a personal brand, which people can, when they look at it, say, I want to work with this brand. Not just the company called Creative Mind Space, but Joe Jimenez, the brand. How did you get to a point where you get so excited about creating a brand such as that, a personal one?
So my sort of thing with creating a personal brand, and it's something that I've had to learn over the last, say, 7-8 years of really just conceptualizing and trying to position myself on digital, right?
Sure.
I call it the PCC method, right? So PCC stands for purpose, content, and consistency. Right? When you are building a brand, the first thing you need to be able to identify is your purpose. Why am I doing what I want to do? Right? It's very scary if you have people around you who can't question why they do what they do. Right? So the first thing was purpose. Who am I? Where do I come from? What are my roots? Right? And what do I want people to know about me? So once you've discovered your purpose, you move on to the next letter, which is C for content, right? Now that I know who I am and what's my story, how do I want to communicate that content on digital? what images am I using? What mediums am I using? What social media platforms am I using? Are they the right platforms for my brand? Is the type of people that I'm trying to speak to on those platforms, right? So if I'm a makeup artist, are people that want to consume makeup content on LinkedIn? No, they're not, right?
Okay.
Maybe they're on Instagram, maybe they're on Twitter or YouTube. So finding the right content and marrying that with the right platform, right? After you've discovered your purpose. Then there's consistency, because we are in a generation where there's so much noise. You go on your platforms right now on Twitter, there's 10,000 posts every second. Someone is posting something. Someone is trying to grab your attention, right? To stop your thumb. How do you get through the noise, right?
Wow.
It's by creating content that obviously, number one, is purposeful, but then it's also consistent, because you want to remain top of mind, right? So people know Joe always drops a podcast at this hour, or Abuti always drops an episode every 2 weeks or every month. That is consistency. And unfortunately, building a brand takes a long time. Long time. And the waiting period is crazy, because there's so many other people around you who are currently succeeding, and you see them, growing and moving, and you want to be like them. You want that deal. You want to work with that brand. You want, to achieve all those things. But you need to understand that building a brand is a process, right? But if you stick to the PCC method, you are right on your way to do great things.
I have this ideology about personal brands, and so because I had this fascinating conversation with myself before I could even speak to people about it, right? And this conversation says that we have two types of personal brands. We have people who invest in their brands and who they are and how they position themselves and what they want to achieve with that brand. And then there's also people who build products and services. And I'm going to use an example with two people who are quite known to many entrepreneurs. One is Bonang. Bonang. Who is Bonang? Bonang Mateba.
Yeah.
And I normally said Bonang Mohali, because there's another Bonang Mohali from corporate. And then there is also another one who works on their brand, which is Joe Jimenez, right? These two brands. Let's take Bonang, and then, or maybe let's take Theo Baloyi.
Okay.
Buntu. One created a brand which can collaborate with many other brands.
Yeah.
Bonang can be on any brand and promote the other brands and make the other brands grow and become big. Ultimately, Bonang can even launch her own products at the end, as soon as her name is that wide, and she has even grown that brand to become an international brand, right? So people know Bonang Mateb, but a lot of people don't know BNG, right? But then there is also another person, Theo Baloyi, who created the product before the brand.
Yeah.
And the product stood out.
Yeah.
He went back, right? He was at the back of the brand, engineering the brand, which is Buntu. Now, a lot of people know about Buntu.
Yeah.
But they don't know who is the person behind the brand. But he himself, he can be a brand, of course. Yeah. Now, in these two instances, which one do you think you would want many entrepreneurs to look at in the country? The one that can grow to a point where it can collaborate with many other brands and have maybe shares or have equity in certain brands, or the one that builds a product and takes the product forward, they step back, the product is the one that is leading?
Look, I think it comes down to what you're trying to achieve, right? Because there's so many ways to build brands, and it comes down to your focus. Do you want to build products, or do you want to build a brand, right? So let's say with someone like Bonang, right? I would say that building the product comes at a much later stage when you've understood the power and the influence that you as an individual has, right?
Yes.
And now you want to go into market by actually testing your market. And it's something that I recently also sort of started working on, where I realized that I'm happy with the work that I've built for other brands. I'm happy with the collaborations that I've done, and I know my influence and I know the value that I can create, right? Why can I not monetize that on my own? Why do I need to partner up with a brand and sell that to my audience all the time? You know, why can I not create something of my own and sell that to my audience? Because my audience already loves me. They trust me. They listen to me.
Sure.
Right? So when you are building a personal brand, I think you do get to a place where you can start building and monetizing the properties around you that you're actually creating, right?
Yes.
But if you're focus-driven on product first, right, and you engineer that from the background, it's also a very great way to build a personal brand.
How long does it take between the two? Eh?
It really depends on process. It depends on market.
Luck? Political connection?
I would say that building a personal brand in today's world is much easier than building a product. I'll tell you why, because we've got social media, right? And social media is like the playing field. Sure. You can be anyone you want to be. You can create whatever you want to be. You can work with whoever you want to work if you are purposeful and consistent, and the content that you put out is valuable to the person on the other side of your device.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
I grew my Twitter following from 1,000 to 30K in about a year and a half.
Wow. Yeah,
right? And
massive.
it was purely based off just putting out great content and putting out information,
sure.
right? Value. So I think building a personal brand in terms of the process is much quicker, because you could go viral at any moment, right? Building a product takes a little bit more time.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more that goes into it. There's design, there's testing, there's quality, there's...
Before you could even get to commercialization, eh?
There's all these things,
Shucks,
right?
Man. Yeah.
And, you could have a convo with Theo, and he will tell you, like, yo, maybe the first Buntu shoe I made, after a couple of months, the stitch came out, or whatever.
People are not unhappy about.
Right?
Yeah,
and
okay.
so building products takes time and takes a lot of consistency and work behind it and development. So I would say personal branding, the process is much quicker, because digital is your playing field.
Speaking about the digital right now, we have the new phenomenon, which is the age of influencer marketing. Influencers, people who are influencers. Back in the days, we used to have celebrities as the main source of influence into making us to decide on how we should see brands and interact with brands, and when I get to the shop, which brand should I go for and whatnot. And we had your Dark and Lovely, Connie Ferguson being part of those products and stuff like that. We had all these people, Trust, recent one with Trust, Pale 2C, people are talking about that one. But right now we have what you call influencer marketing. One, I want to understand your understanding. I want to get your understanding on what influencer marketing is. And also, number two, speaks to the protest right now that is there on social media about Instagram, the creative aspect that is, limiting traffic to their accounts and to their posts and whatever. I always say that they've reduce the meter readings. So the
Yeah.
meter for electricity is low. There's no longer enough supply of viewership and whatever on Instagram. And I think that's something that Mark Zuckerberg has done also with Facebook. I mean, for the time I remember, in 2013 when you had a page, you could reach a lot of people. Right now you have to boost it in order for you to reach it. So what's your take on what influencer marketing is, and how can other young people approach influencer marketing too? But what is your stance right now on the protest about Instagram and not really doing justice to the creatives as you'd have like TikTok right now competing with it heavily?
So I think influencer marketing is a concept that we as Africans or South Africa is still trying to understand.
Okay.
It's still fairly new. It isn't a regulated industry. There's quite a lot that we still need to gauge and understand about what it is. My understanding of it is really just finding the right people that speak to your brand and your values, and working with them and having them partner with you to send out defined message, right? For me, that is influencer marketing. Advice on how to go into it is find your niche. I think we get too distracted by trying to do everything and trying to be like everyone else. But if you can just focus on a specific industry and a specific niche, and just be consistent with that, and know that your tribe will eventually find you. Be authentic with what you put out. I always say that if it's real, it'll resonate. So those are like the tips in trying to go into that space. With regards to Instagram and how they've been tweaking the algorithm, I think at the end of the day, I personally think that Instagram did not know that their platform was going to be a platform where creators and individuals could actually be paid, and they were not going to be part of the equation. So I think once they figured that out, I mean, Kylie Jenner gets like what, 1 million or 2 million per Instagram post. Instagram does not get a cent of that. She's just using their platform because brand contacts creator directly, right? Sure. So they've noticed how they're actually losing money in conversations like that. So they're trying to put in like new algorithm tests and trying to create creator accounts, trying to build dashboards and stuff like that, where now for your content to get the right reach, you have to either boost your page, right? Why? Because they have to make money. So if you're boosting via Instagram, Instagram is actually making a profit from that. And it's a conversation that we've been having with a lot of creators, and I'm honestly like, if it's not your platform, you unfortunately can't do anything about it. It's either you end up using it or you don't, right? Or build a platform that you own. Build platforms where you own the content, because everything that we put on the social media platforms, unfortunately we don't read the T's and C's, but it says it can be remarketed, it can be reused. So if you post a picture right now on Twitter or Instagram, you need to know that it doesn't belong to you anymore, right? You don't have the rights to it anymore. So build platforms where you actually own the content. Build a website, build an app where you can control what goes where and what is used. But yeah, for me, honestly, it's a money move from Instagram and Zuckerberg, just trying to make more money.
It's an expensive exercise for us to build our own platforms.
No,
what do you think?
Look, I think we as creatives have everything that we could ever ask for. One thing that we don't always do is collaborate, right? If we could all collaborate and build platforms and build products and build things and share the pie equally, I don't think we're not going to win.
I always say to, even on my social media, that collaboration is the new currency.
It is.
It's a new currency. If you are missing out on that, it's like Bitcoin. We missed out on Bitcoin in 2011.
Because it makes my job much easier to say, okay, cool, I'm going to pitch at X brand, right?
Sure.
Let's say we specialize in design and brand building, right?
Sure.
And then we say maybe Abuti would come in and they're going to shoot the actual advert. Then we get the guys who are going to probably do the styling or the clothing for that advert. So I'm walking into a boardroom and I'm pitching to a big brand and I've got all my bases covered. Because you come in with your expertise, I come in with my expertise, the next guy comes in with the expertise. And we are able to lure that brand and get that deal or that project running, because we're bringing all these different skill sets, and each one of us is just focusing on what they're really good at. So I think we as creatives just need to collaborate a bit more, and we'll be able to build much more sustainable platforms.
By the way, guys, Abuti show, it's a collaboration between different companies. You know, there's S-Cube Media, there is JT Photography, there is Gold Creatives, there is the people who do my clothing, Akamo, you know, from Ivory Coast. You know, this is when you see me wearing this beautiful shirts all the time, is because somebody is putting in the effort, and it's a collaborative and it's a bartering system. And I think that's something that we need to be encouraging as creatives, as entrepreneurs in Africa right now. But enough with that, Joe. The last comments that I want to hear from you is, it's really about what you're doing now. What is exciting you right now? What is coming up, and what is going to be exciting us about Joe Jimenez, the brand, or else, you know, Creative Mind Space? What do you have in store for us? What's exciting for 2021?
So Creative Mind Space, very low key, just really working on interesting brands. We've just signed a very big deal, and I think that's what's keeping us busy for 2021, and just really being able to focus on that one client and making sure that the work is out. With me, a lot less partnerships with brands. I think I'm done with the influencer space. I'm happy with the brands I've worked with. I'm really looking towards more corporate work. But on a personal level, I've finished designing my hat range. A lot of people have been asking me about hats and stuff. So I've been, the last 3-4 months, I've just been learning how to make hats, trying to infuse, you know, my inspirations and my culture into some of the designs that are going to be out there. So I'm launching my shop next year, and like just looking forward to creating more and building more valuable things.
The products is hats only. I saw some
there's
plates
a lot.
flying around.
There's crockery, there's homeware.
Wow.
There's accessories, but I think a lot of, from the research I've done just in the market, a lot of people want hats. They've known me for that. The way I style them, the way I wear them, and I decided, look, let's run with hats first. The other products are going to come when the timing is right, but also I'm a perfectionist, so I really take my time in trying to perfect whatever I'm creating and what I'm building. So hats are gonna fly out first.
Awesome stuff. Joe, you've been
so much,
awesome.
man.
Thank you so much for being part of Abuti Live.
It's a pleasure.
All right, colleagues, if you were watching Abuti show, thank you so much for tuning in. We've learned so much. I think, I'm taking all these lessons that Joe shared with us right now. I'm going to be also implementing some of them. Listen, make sure that you share this episode with your friends. Make sure that, you know, people know about this conversation that we're having right now, because we want African young creatives, African young entrepreneurs to make sure that they work together and make sure that they come up with innovative ways to, you know, find solutions and monetize their solutions. I think that's the most important thing.